Hello and welcome back. We're going to be taking a look at adding the percussive elements in so we get the general groove going, and then we can start building the rest of the track around the groove. So you can see I've put a couple of tracks in here. If I just close this, I've got the kick, hat and clap. We're going to load the kick in at this stage, and then we'll look at the kick in another episode because that's going to be with the bass at the same time. And we can go ahead and drag these in. So if you're using a sampler, you can drag them into your sampler on your DAW, or if you want to use them as audio files, you can do that as well and just drag and drop them into your project. I'm using a sampler, so I'm just going to open my sampler up and I'm going to drag my kick in there, and then my hat, and finally the clap. So we've got those in there, and now we can add in the rest of the samples that come with this. So I've actually got a shaker and a perk loop here as well. We'll use the uplifter later, that's part of the effects. So I'm going to drag the perk loop in, and I'm also going to drag the shaker loop. And I'm going to put the shaker above that. And you can see they're not quite in time. So on Cubase, I'm going to go to my pool and set musical mode up, or you can do it however you need to do to get it set to time if it's not automatically done. So it's picked up the tempo of them. That is absolutely fine. So I'm just going to click musical mode on both of them. And you can see in the background, we now have our loops set properly. And I'm going to start with the perk loop here. And I want to get rid of the toms that are in there. I just want the sort of like hi-hat content. So I'm just going to focus on one bar. Let's zoom this in. And I'm going to use the scissor tool to cut out these bongo sort of areas. So there's one there. And there's one here. So I'm just going to sort of loosely chop these out. So let's just get rid of that one and that one, which is perfect. I'm just going to roll off the edges, so you can do that as well, crossfading, whatever you want to do. And we don't need to worry about the residual tom sound in there. That is absolutely fine. It's going to add to the groove. Plus, we're going to be EQing that out anyway. So it sounds a little bit janky at the moment, but once we put other things in, like the shaker, it's going to start loosening that up a little bit. So that's still not in time. I'm just going to resize this here manually like that. So from that, you can hear that it is a little bit better, but it's still sounding a bit janky, but don't worry too much about that at the moment because we've got the other bits to add in. So I'm going to add in the hi-hat. So let's solo this on its own. C3 is my natural pitch area for this sampler. It could be different on your DAW, but that's the original pitch. I'm just going to draw those in. So you can see those sort of gaps are starting to disappear the more elements come into play. And then on top of the clap that's already in this sort of like percussion loop down here, we're going to add the clap. So I've just copied the hats there, and I'm going to delete the second ones and then put them on every second beat. And there we are. We have our basic groove set up. So I'm just going to copy that across. So we've got 4 bars of everything. And you can see that is all there. So I'm going to color code this at this point. So everything is going to be red because that's what I do all of my percussion in. And I'm going to include the kick there as well. And for now, I am going to draw the kick in as well. So on these 4 bars, I'm just going to set my notation, my quantize to quarter notes, and draw the kick in all the way across. And that is done, but we can mute the kick for now because we're not focusing on that right now. So the important thing about your percussion is to roll out some of the unnecessary lows that come with it. It might sound like they're quite tinny or more towards the top end of the frequency range, but we're going to hear that the hats particularly and the claps are going to have a lot of low information, and we're going to see that as well. So starting with the hats, I'm going to load TDR Nova, and we're going to use Nova a lot for these sort of surgical removes. And we're going to click high pass and click out so we can see the visualizer. I'm going to solo that. You can see there's a lot of low information, even popping up at 50 Hertz there, and a lot from 100 to 1000 Hertz. So I'm going to roll them out. And what you'll have noticed there, that hi-hat has actually it sounds brighter. When in fact, all we've done is rolled out the lows. So we've removed it from the headroom. So we've given the hi-hat more space to breathe in its natural area. But at the same time, it just sounds brighter because all that information is removed. So we didn't have to boost it. So you can hear how much that is actually destroying the sample and your mix in turn, because everything that's trying to operate in the low end, especially the kick and bass, is now starting to add other frequencies into their mix, and that's where things start to fall apart. So keep it clean, and it's good practice to roll them off. So for now, I'm happy with that. It might be too bright, but we can come back and sort that out when we're mixing the track. Next up is the clap. Again, TDR Nova. And I'm going to click out. So I'm looking to keep some of that sort of mid-range information there for now. I don't want it to be really tinny. I want to be able to hear that clap a little bit further down into the mid-range. And for now, you can hear that brightens the clap up as well. It makes it sound a little bit crispier. And that is handy for now. That is all good. Same with the shaker. We're going to load TDR Nova. Same with this. Click out. Click high pass. Look at all that information even down below 20 Hertz. That's insane. So you can see the natural curve of the sound here. So I'm going to follow that by using a 12 dB. And that'll do for now. So it sounds a lot brighter. It sounds too bright, in fact, but we can sort that out. And then same with this top loop. We want to get rid of that residual sort of tom noise that came through that we chopped out. So out, high pass. Look at all that information. So now you can hear that tom information that's left behind is totally unimportant because we've rolled off the EQ further past where that is sort of occupying. So now we have this all together. Sounding much cleaner. We've got to make it a little bit tighter yet, but that is the first portion done. And before we do the sort of first part of the mix to get these balanced, I'm just going to rename this as well to clap. For some reason that still said hat. I'm going to shorten down and make things a little bit snappier, and we're going to start with the clap. The clap is a little bit too much. So we can use a volume shaper plugin. You can do that by all means, or you can use your sampler and just use an amp mod. So I'll show you both ways, and then you can choose which one you want to do. So I'm going to use my amp mod, and I'm going to use the attack, decay, and sustain. Set this to 1 shot because I need to do this for that, but you probably don't need to do that on your DAW. And I'm going to bring back the sustain level here and start a little curve in the release. And that's going to start shortening that sample. As you can see, it's now chopping the end of this off. So before. And that's probably perfect, actually. Let's just have a listen. And before. And that's one way of doing it. So I'm just going to turn this back to sustain mode, so it's not actually going to affect this. You can hear the original length of the clap there. And we're going to use a volume shaper, and I'm going to use Tal Filter 2 for this. And to get hold of Tal Filter, we can just type in Tal Filter 2 on Google. In the first link for Tal software, and you can see the downloads are here. You don't need to make an account or anything. You can just click your operating system and it will download. Just install it as normal. It will guide you through it, and then it will be in your DAW when you next restart. And for this, I'm going to use legacy mode. It just makes things a little bit easier on here. And we're going to set this to volume. And we're going to set this to times 16. So it's actually pulsing at a beat now on there. So it'll be shaping the clap as the clap hits. I'm going to bring this all the way to the top, create a node here, and create a node here. So let's just bring that down. So you can see we set the release up like we did on here. You can see that release there. We've got something similar here. And then I can bring this back and shorten the clap down. So I'm actually going to bring this down to 8 because it hits every second bar. So now you can hear the clap is actually hitting here. So let's bring it to about here. And just bring this down. And the best way to see this is the kick occupies these 2 beats, and then the kick occupies these 2 beats. So it's 1 bar, and the kick, kick. So you've got a kick, clap, kick, clap, kick, clap. It's going back and forth like that. And we've done the same thing there with volume shaping. So you can use that way, or you can use this method, which I'm going to use using an amp envelope in my sampler. So back to one shot. You get the same result either way you can choose. And with that done, we can do the same now for the hi-hat. And you can hear it's just falling over a little bit too much. So what I'll do with that is exactly the same thing with the shaping. I'm going to use the mod, one shot mode, and I'm going to bring the sustain back and then curve the release here for now. So I'm wanting the same length of sample, I just don't want the decay to go for so long after. So that's why I'm just sort of tailoring that release to tighten it up, but keep the main body of that hat intact. And now that I've introduced you to Tal Filter, we can use that on the shaker to simulate some sidechains. So let's get a instance of Tal Filter 2, legacy mode, times 16 and volume. And then I'm going to bring this down to the bottom, and I'm just going to create a sidechain shape with the volume shaper, leaving a little ramp at the end to stop any clicks, because going from full volume to 0 is going to create a click. And this is going to start sort of giving you that pumping effect with the shaker. So you can hear that's what's happening, and then you can use the depth control, which is just essentially mix, and we can mix half of the original signal and half of this. So that's fully off. So now we should get this effect. And with that, I'm just going to go back to TDR Nova here, and I'm just going to roll this off a little bit higher on the shaker. And I'm just rolling out the highs a little bit. It's just a little bit too crispy at this stage, but that all sounds good now. And there we are, we have the groove set up. So all we need to do really is balance this part of the track just temporarily till we get the rest of the mix in place, but just give this a better starting point. So switching to the next screen, you can see the mixer is on screen. So you can see all the percussion is here. And before we start adjusting the faders and bringing them roughly to a nice level, I'm going to use some pre-gain to reduce the level of all of the tracks so we get some headroom from the tracks. At the moment it's peaking, you can see it's clipped in red down here. So wherever your pre-gains are located, just activate them, make sure you've got them set up. And you can see pre appears up here. And I'm just going to double click and put -9 in each one. You can use any sort of level to start with. Some people use -12, and some use -18, some use -6. It's entirely up to you what you feel comfortable with. So you can see I'm just setting the tracks up with the -9. I'm not setting up the out gain, so the stereo out or any other inputs, just the tracks that we're working with, giving us a bit of a lower level. So you're going to hear that level drop now. But it's given us a little bit more headroom to start with, which is great. And we're aiming for sort of like -6 there, you can see at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to bring all the faders down. not the kick for now and not the melody, and just get these balanced. I think that works quite nicely. Let's just bring the kick in at the volume it's at. So we've got a little bit more volume to get out of the kick, so that will dominate. But for now, if I just bring that up, you'll get an idea of the balance. Bring that roughly back down to 0 for now and mute it. So that is the percussion. We've done the tidying up, we've rolled off the lows, and we've just shaped that shaker temporarily with the filter that we used from Tal, and that gives us a nice starting baseline for the groove. So with that set up, we've got everything ready to go. We just need to add the bass and a few extra elements, and we can start structuring out the track. And the perks of continuing the series over at Born to Produce, you're going to get access to the presets, the samples, even the project if you're a Cubase user, and a few little extras as well. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next one. See you there.